Man, it's been a long day. Whew! I can't wait to wash all the sweat out of my batsuit. Wait, are you going to take a shower? You weren't even in my movie. And no, I don't stink. What do you mean you don't stink? Well, I don't sweat, therefore I don't stink. Oh really? I must catalog this for the contingency plan. Your what? Nothing. It's just that I don't believe you. Talk about personal space, Batman. Wait, you smell exactly like... David Cornsweat? More like David Cheeseskin. What's up, Overthinker Club, and welcome to another episode of Animated Cartoon Conspiracy Theory. Superman stinks. I mean that he actually smells bad, but not in the way or the reason that you would expect. I'm pretty sure we've all wondered what our favorite superheroes would smell like. Batman probably wears the same cologne as Duke Dennis, whereas Wonder Woman would probably smell like a fresh rosé. But Superman would smell like cheese. Now, of course, Old Spice would beg to differ with the claim that he will often smell like a citrusy smell. But what about after battle? Or a day where he skips the shower? I'm pretty sure Superman wouldn't be smelling as fresh. In fact, I think he would smell quite bad, and probably worse than whatever Batman, Wonder Woman, or even what the rest of the Justice League could smell like. And there's a good reason I suspect this too, and it's because Superman doesn't sweat. So make sure you clean up nice and bring your shampoo and deodorant, because this theory is about to smell. So a good question to ask ourselves is, where does body odor exactly come from? Go on, I'll let you guess down in the comments, but I'll also leave a timestamp here so that way you can know if you got it right or not. But for now, I'm going to explain. So body odor can come from a multitude of areas, namely the armpits, groin, and feet areas. That's not hard to believe, and we've all at some point have smelt someone who has dealt it, or the body odor smell. And if you're nice enough, you probably became a hero for the day and passed them some of your perfume or extra deodorant. But what exactly causes those odors in the first place? Well, one way to answer that is, why are all the smells concentrated into these specific areas, i.e. the armpits, groin, and feet areas? Well, it's because of a specific combination of Aprocene sweat and Staphylococcus hominis, certain type of bacteria that just sits upon your skin. Now try saying that 5 times fast. Now Aprocene sweat is basically a superfood for this bacteria. They're solely responsible for creating that oniony smell that you smell when people go to the gym, because they are breaking down the sweat and the body oils found on your skin into these compounds that end up smelling like that. But what if you didn't sweat, like at all? Because Superman doesn't. While it's baked into Superman's character to have at least one Lois Lane in his life, it's actually baked into his character to never truly sweat. See, Superman is a symbol of hope within the world, and hundreds of writers collectively just agreed that Superman shouldn't sweat because it shows weakness. Which is why some of the only times that we see Superman sweat is when he's under a red sun, weakened by kryptonite, or bench presses the earth for a couple of days. Yeah, that's canon too. But if Superman doesn't sweat, that means his body works way different than we initially thought, because animals on Earth need to sweat, or at least get the heat out in some sort of way, whether that's sweating, panting, or having big thin extremities like ears to basically release heat. Like for example, elephants release their heat through their big ears. That's why they wave them around. A lot of the blood goes through their ears and they cool it down by moving. So the reason that humans need to sweat is a simple fact of cooling. If they didn't cool down, they would overheat, and the bacteria that eats the sweating in armpits, groin, and feet areas is why we have odors in the first place. But humans have pores and sweat glands all over their body, which is why during the summer and ever-growing global temperatures is more important than ever to stay cool. And that right there is not a problem for Superman, because he can quite literally fly through the sun. And that tells us exactly how his body is able to stay cool. So one of the strongest forms of Superman is known as Superman 1,000,000. Where he just kind of looks like one of those Oscar trophies that people hold at those award ceremonies. But this exact version of Superman stayed in the sun for 16,000 years. He's basically all powerful, he glows, and he's never overheated. And nobody should be able to do that. Unless, of course, you're less like a human and more like a CPU. Superman, more CPU than mammal. See, the CPUs in your phone and the gaming PC you swore you were going to stream on need to stay cool in order to function properly. That's because the brain of the PC, known as the CPU, gets extremely hot when it's in use. In fact, without some type of internal cooling system going on, a CPU can get as hot as 200 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter, which is wildly dangerous for a CPU because it will just melt on the inside, which is why CPUs use two things mainly to keep cool. It's a heatsink and a fan. And this should resemble what regular humans use in order to cool down. The heat found inside of the CPU goes inside of the heatsink and then is blown away by the fan, which is akin to humans getting hot, sweating, and then evaporating the heat off their skin. But if Superman doesn't mind the heat and can literally fly into the sun to heal, what's his deal? Well, there's actually two popular ways to cool down a CPU. One way is a fan, which we just mentioned, and the other way is using water, otherwise known as a liquid-cooled PC. Now, a liquid-cooled PC literally has water running inside of electrical components, and this is inside of a vacuum-sealed system. As the water runs through, it gets warmed up and then pushed away from the CPU. And because water is so good at absorbing and dispersing heat, you don't even necessarily need a fan to keep it cool. It just goes to a radiator block that sits away from all of the necessary components. And this is why water-cooled PCs are super efficient. And if you want to compare apples to oranges, fan-cooled PCs don't even compare. Liquid-cooled PCs are 2 to 10 times more efficient than their air-rated counterparts. And these PCs can work under a whole lot of stress because they can get as hot as they need to because it's being dispersed efficiently. So whatever internal cooling system that Superman has allows him to go around without sweating at all, even in his Superman 1 million form where he's over thousands and millions of degrees. But if Superman doesn't sweat, doesn't that mean he shouldn't stink at all? He wouldn't have any of the Apricine sweat that makes you stink. The bacteria would still be there, but it wouldn't have anything to feed off of and cause the odors. But the truth is that Superman would still stink, just not in the normal way that we would expect him to, because naturally we don't ever see him push to his limits. So even when he's fighting villains his caliber, it doesn't cause him sweat. For that, he would have to bench press the earth for 5 whole days. That's just to produce 1 drop. So the thing that would make Superman smell indefinitely worse is actually his healing factor. That's right, Superman's ability to heal himself is the thing that will cause him to smell worse than anybody we've ever met before. Now, this could be extrapolated to almost any superhero that has a healing factor, and it's because of that bacteria we talked about earlier. It doesn't only feed off of sweat. It's just that sweat produces a certain type of smell, being that sharp, oniony smell that we smell after somebody goes to the gym. But the thing is that Superman actually heals pretty quickly, like almost a lot. And because he's almost always in direct sunlight, he's always healing. And that would mean that none other than dead skin would be present. And I mean like a whole lot. So your skin is always growing and regenerating new cells. And this is constant throughout your whole life and never stops. And when your skin heals and creates new cells, it pushes out the old ones, creating dead skin, flakes, dandruff, all of the above. But just imagine the trillions of skin cells that are being renewed on Superman's body on a daily basis. Basically, after each battle, he would look like a snake shedding his skin. Not to mention that his skin would be growing at a rapid pace even when he's not fighting, even when he's not injured, which means those bacteria cells we mentioned earlier has a feasting ground that they can break down into a new, different smell. And I'm gonna give you about 5 seconds to figure out what that smell is. You ready? 4, 3, 2, okay. The answer is cheese, or at least like a stiff, cheesy smell. That's because your skin flakes are filled with body oil. Body oil is also known as sebum, and once this bacteria break it down, it ends up smelling more like a sulfuric, almost cheesy-like smell. The best way to put this is like an old gym sock that's been sitting on the floor for like a couple days. And even though the Man of Steel doesn't sweat, he sure enough heals at an accelerated rate, which means after a long day of fighting kaiju monsters and saving children, it'd smell no better than a stale gym sock. Now, is that a coincidence? I think not. And if you like videos like these, why not go ahead and follow me here and everywhere? I got plenty of videos on my page, as well as other theories that'll probably rack your brain too. For example, you could check out the game theory that's all about Donkey Kong and how he's being exploited, or you could check out the Peppa Pig theory and about how Madame Gazelle is actually a vampire. Otherwise, welcome to the Overthinker Club, and I'll see you in another video. Bye-bye. Donkey Kong Bonanza might be the darkest game that Nintendo has ever released, and it's not because of Pauline's origin story or the rewriting of the whole Donkey Kong lore, but it has to do with the societal commentary that is buried deep within the game.